Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in to the Fantasy Roundup. I'm your host, Spencer the Guru Urquhart. Alongside me is Gabe Henderson, who's way up north in upstate New York. Still doing the show, though. Appreciate you coming on as usual. And how you doing? Haven't seen you in a few weeks.
Good, doing good. I miss talking fantasy football. I've been enjoying relaxing life up here by the St. Lawrence River, but I'm still here, ready to do the show, ready to talk some fantasy football, cure the itch that I've had.
Right. Yeah, it's nice to vacation, but yeah, whenever you come back, it's like, man, I miss some stuff. But, luckily this is a slow period. So for us degenerates, we like to take our vacations in June, July, because all the other months pretty much are hot and heavy with news. So we still got some stuff to talk about here on the Fantasy Roundup presented by Caesar Sportsbook, official odds partner of bet.NOLA.com. Make sure to head on over to Caesars if you haven't already to claim that offer we got to get the first bet insurance. So go check that out if you're interested in that. Not too much to bet right now. I got the All-Star game tonight, MLB All-Star game, Midsummer Classic. I'm feeling the NL, Gabe. I know it might be crazy. They haven't won in 9 years, but I looked at the rosters. I like their chances tonight. So.
Yeah, I played it safe tonight. I took the American League +1.5, but I'm not picking a winner. I'm staying far away from it because, like you, I like the NL's roster, but it's something about that history of the American League winning. So I just decided to play the run line tonight.
Yeah, that's probably smart. Maybe should have done that with daily best bets. But we got in the hole last night. I fell for the Pete Alonso hype with the home run derby. So trying to make it back tonight with the All-Star game. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's get to our fantasy headlines here. And we had some big breaking news today regarding the Saints and fantasy football world, and that's Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara pleading no contest to a misdemeanor charge. From what I gathered, read Jeff Duncan's article on it. Make sure to head on over to NOLA.com and to the Saints section for more. But basically what I took from it is that it's settled now. It's settled. He's out of it. No criminal charges. They settled with the misdemeanor charge. He's going to pay fines and pay the guy that was injured in the altercation, and as well as some community service. But once he completes that, I believe he's got 3 months. Like after that, he'll be free and clear as far as the legal system. But as far as the NFL is concerned, he's not out of the woods by any means, because the league's personal player conduct policy is very clear in that if there's something that comes up, especially on video, like you're going to get popped. So he's at minimum going to get a 6-game suspension, it appears, for this season. Maybe more, hopefully just 6. But we know how the league tends to be hard on the Saints. So it wouldn't shock me if he got 8 or 10. But I would think just 6, since it was just a misdemeanor charge, no criminal charges there. But glad to see that it's settled, though, because we'll get to the rest of the headlines here in just a bit. I want to get your thoughts on this, Gabe, because Kamara is a guy that's going still fairly high, not super high in drafts because people figure he's going to get suspension. But does this news change your thoughts on him any heading into the draft?
That's a tough one, just because this all feels real now. We've heard for the last few months we've all about this Kamara suspension stuff, and they just kept kicking the can down the road, and you thought, there was a little lingering thought in the back of your mind: will he ever actually get suspended for this, or is it just going to keep going on? But now that it's settled in court, I mean, the NFL's got room to do its thing, and I think now it feels like a suspension is finally coming for Kamara. I think once that becomes definite, and the fact that it is now real for a lot of people, we will see his ADP fall. But we saw what DeAndre Hopkins did last year after his suspension. So who says Kamara can't do the same thing? He's still got some value in fantasy.
Right. Yeah, I think because now that it's settled, he'll probably get suspended for the first 6 weeks, if I had to guess, as opposed to if this was going to drag out, then it would probably have happened. Like if it got settled in October, then he'd probably get suspended like in the middle of the season, like the meat of the schedule, where this, assuming he gets it the first, weeks 1 to 6, to me, that's really good news for Jamal Williams, because then Jamal Williams will have a clear path to being the lead back, because Kendre Miller, I was thinking if a midseason suspension might be better for the Saints rookie Kendre Miller, because then he'll be more acclimated to the offense. But since it's looking like an early season suspension, probably going to help Jamal Williams out more as opposed to Kendre Miller. And Jerry, what up, Jerry? Just got the Kamara news. I'm sure
Right in time, Jerry.
Jerry's always tuned in to the Saints news. But yeah, yep, no contest. So looking like it's settled. Good thing for Kamara, because it could have gotten, if it had dragged on, you never know what can happen with that. So good that he pleaded no contest, got it settled. So should be free and clear once he serves his suspension, whatever it'll be. Hopefully just 6 games, and they will just go about business as usual, because Alvin Kamara, like, outside of this incident, has never had any other criminal history. Probably just a fluke incident, hanging around probably not the best people, got caught up in that. So hopefully he learned his lesson and won't have any more trouble, because he's been a franchise cornerstone now for the past 5+ years. So wish Alvin the best and hope he turned a new leaf. But let's get to the rest of these headlines. Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz back-to-back. First time in MLB draft history that players from the same program went back-to-back, first and second overall. So LSU fans, it's bittersweet. Bitter the fact that you're losing these 2 generational talents, but sweet to see them go on to bigger and better things. Javonte Williams plans to be ready for training camp, even though he's coming off a major knee injury that suffered in, I think it was week 4 last year. Not sure how Sean Payton's going to divvy up those backfield touches, but if Javonte is healthy, he should be the starter there in Denver. He's a guy that's never really fulfilled his potential, but if healthy, has a chance to do big things in that new look Sean Payton offense. Will he be healthy, though? It's yet to be seen. He plans to be ready, but we all know how that goes. A lot of times a player's plans don't match the team's plans. If I had to guess, the team is going to play it very cautious with him, considering Denver's backfield depth is kind of lacking. They got Samaje Perine they brought in, but don't really have much else over there. I mean, if you're relying on Tony Jones, then you're in trouble. So I think they're going to play it safe with Javonte. I think he'll come back. He'll come back at some point early in the year, but I think he starts the year on the PUP. But he plans to be ready, so we'll see if his plan works out. And then some summer league news, summer league going hot and heavy. Pelicans got Dyson Daniels showing out, first and second year players mainly in that. But the player that everyone had their eyes on is now shut down. Victor Wembanyama, only 2 summer league games. First game kind of struggled. It looked like, had the viral block against Brandon Miller, or he got blocked and looked foolish. But I mean, it's just one play and it went viral, so everyone made a big deal. But then he comes back in the second game and just freaking dominates, just shows why he was the number 1 overall pick. And I think after that, the Spurs are just like, well, we've seen all we need to see. Shut him down. Don't want to risk any injuries.
Yep. Despite all the memes, he's justified the hype. We're good. Don't want to risk injury any further. So, but yeah, no, the most interesting news in there for me is the Javonte Williams. This is a fantasy show after all, so we got to talk about that. I'm not touching the Broncos backfield with a 10-foot pole, unless, of course, they get Dalvin Cook.
Mm-hmm. I kind of like Samaje Perine late, because you get him so late. Not that he's like amazing, but if he's getting the early down work there, he could be an RB2, especially if Javonte misses first few weeks. So I kind of like it, because I feel like with Sean Payton, like it's gonna be a more effective rushing attack. So it's like, but if it's Tony Jones or something like that, then yeah, I'm staying away. So we'll see how Perine does. I think he could be pretty good because they paid him in free agency. But I get your point that it's kind of rough sledding over there.
Yeah, we'll change the saying a little bit. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-round pole. Meaning I wouldn't touch that backfield in the first 10 rounds. How's that?
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, Javonte, if he slips to like 8 or 9, is kind of tempting. But a lot of times my rule of thumb is don't touch running backs coming off torn ACLs. I mean, that even goes for Breece Hall. Like, unless Breece Hall slips to the 3rd, I'm probably not drafting him. A lot of times he goes in the 2nd. But speaking of that, let's our first segment here before we get to this. The theme of this show is fantasy football sleepers. We'll get to that here in just a bit. But I wanted to go over a couple mock drafts beforehand, comparing single QB with a super flex mock. We'll start off with the single quarterback PPR and seeing how this one went. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase kicked it off. So it looks like the trend of receivers going above running backs is really really taking shape, and rightfully so, in my opinion, because these receivers are they're so reliable for the most part. I know Cooper Kupp missed half the year last year, but he's normally pretty reliable. He fell there to the 8th pick. Bijan going in the middle of the first, and then as it goes on, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, only quarterbacks to go in the first 2 rounds, and a big gap after that, Burrow and Hurts, the next 2 to go. But yeah, kind of interesting here. Wouldn't say anything too crazy. There's a Guru Nation mock. Everyone knows their stuff, so I don't really see anything too wild here. But I mean, Mixon in the third, a little high considering his contract situation still unsettled. That's the reason why my sleeper is a teammate of his. So y'all stay tuned for my analysis on that. And then Lamar Jackson slipped a little bit. I know it's single QB, but I guess 5th round's fair. But I really like Lamar in that new system. I know you do too, Gabe. But what stands out to you here in this draft? Anything kind of catch your eye? Someone went too high, too low, or
the thing that catches my eye in this draft is the quarterback selection that we have. I understand people like to take the luxury with Mahomes and Allen in the first few rounds. But I mean, if you look at the value that's there, you get Lawrence is there in the 6th, Herbert, Fields, Tua is available in the 9th. I mean, if there's any draft where you're going to wait on quarterbacks, it's really going to be this year's, because if you look, it's really slim pickings with the receivers after a few rounds with the real top tier receivers. And running backs as well. Those are always a luxury. So I would definitely go running back, receiver heavy early on and wait for your quarterback, because there's a ton of guys out there.
Right. That's usually what I tend to do in this
Mhm.
one here as we scroll down. I don't think I took a quarterback till I had Deshaun Watson in the 10th. He kind of
Yeah.
slipped. Watson normally goes a little higher than that. He went below Kirk Cousins and Tua. So I was like, I'll take him, because the reports are saying that Kevin Stefanski is really tailoring that offense around Deshaun Watson, as opposed to the old way where they were just run, which makes sense, because it's like you paid Watson all that money. You got to utilize him. So you got to let him air it out. So I think he's going to definitely do better than he did in his cup of coffee there last season.
Yeah, he's got more time. He's knocked the rust off a little bit. It's hard to see him playing worse than he did last season, all jokes aside. I'm, as you know, a Houston fan. I've seen what he can do, and with an improved receiving core, he's really, really good value there in the 10th where you got him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we got some tight end values, another position I tend to wait on. I think I waited on it here. No, I went early tight end here, Mark Andrews. So I feel like if you go early tight end, that's fine. But if not, then it's just kind of like you're in that dead zone. But guys like Goddard and Joku, it's just tough to know. Speaking of that Denver backfield, Javonte here, John the Bolt got both Javonte and Piron. He broke your rule though, Gabe. He took them both hired in the 10th round, 7th and 9th there for those Denver backs. And in the Bears backfield, another interesting one, Khalil Herbert there went in the 9th, Deontay Foreman in the 10th. So these committee backfields taking shape. Kendre Miller went in the 10th. Jamal Williams went in the 8th. Kamara went in the 6th. So 2-round gaps. But that's crazy. It's like a pattern. You've got Kamara at the 6.6. Jamal at the 8.9 and Miller at the 10.12. Interesting pattern there.
Yeah, definitely. Just some of the running back selections here are interesting. The fact that there's only a few picks between Dameon Pierce and James Conner is baffling to me, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I feel like in that offense, like James Conner is going to trend down. Where Pierce, like the Texans' offense should be better, or the Cardinals' offense. Ooh, yeah, what a mess.
I also like whoever got Pacheco there in the 6th round.
He kind of slipped.
Yeah, if Pacheco's slipping in drafts like that, definitely take a flyer.
Yeah, because Alexander Madison, I was higher on him, but now that the Vikings are they're saying they got some younger backs there that they're going to give reps to, I'm a little nervous about Madison, because he's never carried the workload before. I'm thinking that might be more of a committee backfield this year, because they got those young guys. I didn't put them on my sleepers list, but guys like Ty Chandler and Dwayne McBride, I think could get some work.
Yeah, Dwayne McBride's definitely a guy that I think in our league, he's one guy that I really kept an eye on. Yeah, Madison, where he's going there in the fourth is a little too high for me.
Yeah, and then we got, these receivers, man. You got, look at this run right here in the second. You got Devontae, Garrett Wilson, Olave, and Jalen Waddle. And I really like all of them, but it's just, that's fair, though. You've got to pay up for these guys. This isn't the era of, I can get a bunch of stud receivers late because all the running backs are going to go early. People, especially in these PPR leagues, are waking up to the fact that these receivers are just as valuable or more valuable than the running backs.
Yeah, the whole trendy draft I guess strategy last year was the emergence of the no running back, where people just took a bunch of great receivers early and waited on committee backs. And fair play if it worked for some people. It's just not something I like to do personally.
And another trend, I saw this, especially in the super flex drafts, and I'm about to pull up, is the hero RB strategy, where you just take one stud at the top, which usually is, like Christian McCaffrey, which my buddy Justin did here in this one. As you can see, he takes McCaffrey and then doesn't take another one all the way down here to Devontae. So that's another trendy strategy I've been noticing, hero RB, where you just focus on one as opposed to worrying about getting 2 or 3 early. And then this, this is our super flex. For those just tuning in, our super flex mock. We actually did this one last night. This one's very fresh. The other one was done last Wednesday. This one was very fresh, hot off the press, super flex, 12-team PPR. And man, the quarterbacks start off with a bang. Jalen Hurts went first. I was shocked by that. And then that was crazy.
That's something. Patrick Mahomes should be the first quarterback off the board every single time in every draft.
Yeah, I agree. I was hoping Mahomes, maybe he'll slip to me at 4, but the big 3 all win. I thought about Lamar. I love Lamar Jackson, but I was just like, you know what? I'm going to try something different and go Justin Jefferson. Still got decent pair of quarterbacks there with Dak and Jared Goff. Looking back on it, though, I maybe should have gone with Lamar. And where would you rank a second round back if you know he's going to miss about half the season? Shoot, probably half that's a lot of games, half the season. Probably, I wouldn't touch him till probably the 8th or 9th round. This is kind of like where Javonte Williams is going, because there's a chance and in Kamara, look at that. They go right there. That's the kind of range, because if we knew those guys were healthy, they'd probably be going in that 2nd, 3rd round range. But with Kamara's suspension and Javonte's injury, it's even Breece Hall, where'd Breece Hall go in this? Into the 3rd. People are aware of this stuff, and they're not reaching on these guys, because it's people have gotten smart and realized that if you're going to miss that many games, it's probably not worth drafting them in the top 3 rounds. In the top 3 rounds, you want players that are going to play all the games. You don't have to be having guys and have them on your IR spot right off the rip. It's if I'm going to take a guy and put in my IR spot, that's why I want the double-digit rounds. Just have a chance, take a chance on them, not someone I invested significant draft capital in.
Yeah, for sure. The one thing I think, especially in a super flex league, where you will get these situations, for example, like you got here with the 1-4. The one thing that I wanted to point out is the fact that you got Justin Jefferson early. And if Justin Jefferson falls to 4 in any of the drafts, I don't care who's available at quarterback. I don't mind what you did here. I do like sacrificing Lamar to get Justin Jefferson.
Or Burrow. I thought about Burrow too. I feel like I couldn't have gone wrong either way. That's a good thing when you get as opposed to a single QB, it's you really want that 1st or 2nd pick. We're in a super flex. It's I almost rather pick 6, because it's I could still get. You still got Burrow and then come back around and get Diggs. So it's whereas opposed to the 1st overall, it's he still got it. It's still that's why I like super flex. It really opens up the board. You see guys. They had something that really stood out to me with. I think it was Jalen Waddle really slipped in this thing. I don't see where he went. I'm not seeing it right now, but he had a 4th round. Jalen Waddle and Chris Olave both fall to the 4th, and Devontae Smith. It's then Amon-Ra, Garrett Wilson down in the 3rd, where normally these guys are going. It's usually about a round difference because of all these freaking early quarterbacks. where you can get these elite skill players out later. Bijan, middle of the second. That's crazy value.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as strategies for Superflex goes, I completely understand wanting to take two quarterbacks, especially when you can get guys early on who are established like Jalen Hurts and Tua. But I really do think that Team Santana kind of messed up a little bit here, going with those two guys back to back. Because if you look at his receiver situation, it's not favorable.
Yeah, it's pretty rough there. Yeah, he's really relying on Christian Watson and Jordan Addison. Addison,
Yeah.
a pure rookie, Watson, a guy that small sample size, and Keenan Allen, a veteran that's not been the most reliable recently.
Yeah, I would have said, if I were him, I possibly would have taken someone like CD or Jonathan Taylor, who went 2 picks after that, or two picks before that, or even hell, someone like Josh Jacobs or Amon Ra, and then gone back and gotten maybe someone like Derek Carr back in the 5th. I mean, it's just someone that I would rather have Derek Carr as a QB2 and one of those other guys to improve my skill position situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that, because it's because with Tua, he's nice when he's healthy, but it's like, well, how many games will he play? It's almost like you got Jordan Love late as a third, which could be good. I know you're pretty high on Love, Gabe. We'll get to that here in just a sec before we transition out of this. But I guess I also wanted to say, I feel like Jerry Jeudy went at a really good price here. I feel like my boy Justin maybe went a little too Broncos heavy. He's got Russ, Jeudy, and Javonte, really drinking the Sean Payton Kool-Aid there. But it's I think Jeudy in that system is really going to thrive. And what is this, the 6th round or something?
Yeah.
That's damn, that's a steal. Because I got Miles Sanders there, which I was happy with as a second running back. But damn, Judy's just wow. Because my receivers, I got Jefferson and Debo, DJ Moore, Mike Williams, Jahan Dotson. I like it. But let's see some late round gems here before we transition. Yeah, this is one I got Kendra. Here, and I waited on tight end for Sam Laporta, the rookie for the Lions, because some of my sleeper tight ends, like Joseph, took Okonkwo and Greg Dulcich, two guys I like taking late, and they both got taken. Dalton Schultz went, and Cole Kmet went, so I had to kind of just settle for the rookie. But it's one of those things. It's you're gonna. A lot of these guys will be playing the wire anyway. It's no guarantee those guys are going to work out. And then a lot of rookies, dart throw rookies, they're late. So it's, a lot of trends starting to take shape, I feel like.
Yeah, see, you got my guy KJ Osborne in the 14th.
Yeah, I got him hella late. And then I got to see a Nico Collins. Nico Collins went there in the 14th. He's a guy I'm starting to like, as a Texans receiver. Because I didn't realize he's a big receiver, Nico Collins. He's the biggest receiver the Texans have. So I think C.J. Stroud might start to take a liking to him. And he's, to me, a value there, since they don't really have any established weapons. Slightly more valuable if they miss the first half as opposed to the second half. They can help you in the playoffs, but you have to make the playoffs. So yeah. It's I would say this too, going back to that point. It's I wouldn't take, if you're going to take guys like that, don't take more than one. If you take Breece Hall, don't take Kamara as well, or don't take Javonte as well. So if you're going to take a Breece Hall, a guy that might miss time early, just make sure not to take other guys like that, because you want to have depth. You want to make sure your other running backs are going to be playing and not going to be missing time.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Going back, because to me, DeAndre Hopkins is the latest example that we have of this whole thing. I don't remember what his ADP was last year, but in most drafts, I think he was going between
the 8th,
eighth and 9th rounds. So I think that really is the perfect place. Just make sure, if you're taking someone like Kamara, make sure you have 2 established backs before him, so he could just complement them when he comes back. Don't wait to take a 3rd running back and have Kamara be your number 2, because if that's the case, it's going to be slim pickings in the running back market, and you're most likely going to have to go to a young guy or a running back by committee, which you might not get into the playoffs once Kamara comes back.
Yeah, and then in that case, well, that didn't do me any good. So I had that with a team last year. I had Hopkins. It's I started off really bad, then got Hopkins back. I actually snuck into the playoffs. I snuck in. I didn't win, but I snuck in. because that's like my team was just like so much better once I had Hopkins back. I don't think people realize how good he was last year. So hopefully
He
he
was
lands.
excellent down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he lands somewhere decent. I'm hoping not Tennessee or New England. I'm hoping he actually gets into a really good system. But it seems like those are the teams that really need him, so they're the most interested. So he might have to settle over there. But we'll see how it goes. Same goes for Dalvin Cook. He's in the same boat. I've never seen. I think I had mentioned this last week. It's never seen a year where two elite skill players like that. I know they've got some age on them, but two like big names that are getting drafted in the first 10 rounds of fantasy still free agents. So be interested to see where they land. So, but let's get to these sleepers here. Spend enough time on those mocks. We'll get to our sleepers here, deep sleepers, and this could change a lot. But I want to get ahead of the curve here, which kind of goes into my rant about got to get prepared here. You want to know these sleepers now so they don't come sneaking up on you on draft day. Or it's not one of those things where you're like, oh, what? Why'd you take him that early? It's like, well, yeah, and I've been keeping up with the news. It's trending up, and then you're like, oh crap, I could had these guys, but you don't want to sleep on these guys. Yeah, they're sleepers for now, but come draft day, they might not be. So take notes on them right here, right now. If you're watching this show, then you're already off to the right start by getting prepared. So appreciate y'all for tuning in. But my sleeper here, Jared Goff. I feel like I've been pounding the table for him for a while now because I feel like in Detroit it's going to be an improved offense. And, everyone's loving Amon-Ra, loving Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, if y'all love them, why don't y'all love Jared Goff too? Like, Jared Goff gets no respect in the fantasy community, even though in the second half of last season he was one of the best quarterbacks, especially from an efficiency standpoint. I know we care more about volume for fantasy, but man, efficiency-wise, he was on an Aaron Rodgers level of efficiency in the second half. So, which tells me that he's really learned the offense over there. Like, he's mastered the offense. It's the same system as last year. He's really comfortable there. Jameson Williams going to be gone the first 6 weeks. That's another guy to don't go crazy over because it's like he's suspended. But when he comes back, though, that's going to be a nice shot in the arm there for Goff and the Lions. So I think he starts off pretty good because his early schedule, I know he's got the Chiefs early and then some NFC North teams that don't have very good defenses. So should be a pretty favorable start to the season for him. And then once he gets Jameson back, like to complement Amon-Ra, I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, especially in 6-point passing touchdown leagues. Even 4-point, I still have him as top 12. Have him right now I think I have him ranked 11th on my list, and at his current ADP going in the middle of the 11th round, he's the 16th quarterback off the board. Aaron Rodgers being drafted over him, and to me, I'm taking Goff because Rodgers, for one, he's learning a new offense, and two, it's like they're going to be running a lot, playing defense. The Jets, I don't think Rodgers is worried about putting up gaudy numbers. He wants a ring. He went there because he wants a Super Bowl ring. He's not worried if he's got enough career stats. So he's not worried about that. Where a guy like Goff, like, I think he could end up being a first QB. And then as a second QB, you're really sitting pretty.
Yeah, of course. I think if you're talking value in those mid-range quarterbacks, I don't think you can get any better than Goff and Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
those guys, if you're doing what I was saying earlier and you're waiting to take a quarterback, if you can get a guy like Goff or Daniel Jones surrounded by some really good skill players, you are set. And I think you're almost a lock to make the playoffs, bar injuries.
Yeah, for sure. You got Jordan Love there as your QB sleeper. I know he's probably not like a QB1 target, but he's going late, a good QB2. Do you think he's a guy that is worth taking? I know a lot of single QB leagues, you don't even worry about taking a backup, but make your case there for J Love.
Yeah, I think once you get into the 13th round, we start talking about these quarterbacks. So I think here it's just upside with Jordan Love. You're getting a solid quarterback who has been in the system for years, and there's potential there. Everything that everyone has ever said about Jordan Love has been positive. There's a reason the Packers are turning to him. They've got an offensive-minded coach. I just think there's potential with Jordan Love falling this far back. I would take him, even though he's essentially a rookie, I would take him over any of the rookies, I think. other than maybe, if we're talking redrafts, Anthony Richardson because of Richardson's rushing ability. But I just like the potential because you're essentially getting a young guy here who has gotten a few years to develop at the NFL level, although he hasn't played a ton of games, but he's got that experience. But that those rookies don't have. So I feel like Jordan Love could have a big year. And if you're someone who waits on quarterbacks, like you mentioned, Spencer, probably not a quarterback one, but if you're playing a super flex, even Jordan Love is not a bad quarterback two option. So you can get those skill position guys elsewhere.
Yeah, I actually traded for him in a Superflex dynasty like before the NFL draft. I gave up a first, and I didn't care because it was like, well, I had won the league, so it was the 1.12, and I knew I wasn't getting CJ, Bryce, or Anthony Richardson. So I was just like, I hit the reset. I needed another quarterback. Tom Brady, I kind of sold out for the present, and I had Brady, and then he retired. So it's like, well, I had to get another QB there in the fold and got Love. So what strategy? I don't know what he's what strategy. I guess waiting on a quarterback, but I mean it's like I feel like
and
most smart fantasy players know to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I just feel like Jordan Love is not getting the love, no pun intended, that he almost deserves because he's commanded respect from everyone who's talked about him. So, and even though we as fantasy players haven't seen that, there's something there. There's people a lot smarter than me are saying that he's a damn good football player. So I'm going to take their word for it. And this late on, it's worth a flyer.
I feel that because it's like, as long as you don't take him too high, but if you take him late like that, it's like worth a shot. And then if he stinks, well, you just cut him. It's not like you spend any amount of draft capital on him. But for super flex purposes, we hope he performs well because in those he'll probably be using him a lot. But let's move on to the running back position. I got Chase Brown, the rookie with the Bengals, alluded to that earlier when we were going over the mock draft because of Joe Mixon's contract situation. Still not settled, still is not agreed to a restructured deal with the Bengals, and I think he'll eventually do so, but there's still a chance that Joe Mixon gets released before the start of the season, in which case they'll probably bring in someone. But even if they do, Chase Brown, the rookie, he's been learning the system all off season. He's been there in OTAs. He's a guy that had a good college career, went to Illinois, a school that pounds the rock, old school Big Ten kind of offense. So I think he's a guy that shot to return value in year one. And he's going, not even in most leagues are 16 rounds. He's not even being drafted in 16-round leagues. So he's basically undrafted. I know a lot of leagues nowadays they'll go 18 or 20. So I included him in the ADP just to show he's barely being undrafted. It's not like he's completely slept on, but he's still very slept on in the sense that, like, to me, if you have Joe Mixon, if you're doing a draft, if you have to do one of those real early redrafts and like or best balls, like, and you have Mixon to take Mixon in the fourth, to me, you almost have to handcuff him with Chase Brown because Travion Williams is a name that some people think of, but he's been in their system for years and never done anything. Like, I don't see him all of a sudden becoming a thing. So to me, Chase Brown is the guy you want if you have Mixon as an insurance policy. And Mixon also has had some legal issues over the years. He's been kind of injury prone. He's just not really someone I trust. And so I feel like Chase Brown is a very good handcuff and could even have standalone value. I mean, Samaje Perine had his weeks last year as their RB2 in which he really thrived. So I think Chase Brown has a lot of potential. And I see you dove deep as well, Gabe, with Gus the Bus Edwards there really late. J.K. Dobbins a talk of the town, but I feel like people are forgetting about Gus.
Yeah, well, first off, Spencer, let me comment on the Chase Brown pick. That's now two guys that you've mentioned in these first two slides that I'm now convinced you have gotten into my sleeper account because those are two guys that I absolutely love and I take them whenever I can. Now, as far as Gus Edwards goes, we know J.K. Dobbins' injury history, and it seems like every year the Ravens backfield is just depleted. injuries waiting to happen. And so I think Gus Edwards is the clear running back too, and they are going to run the ball. I know that's always been their forte, but they're now opening up their offense even more. They're potentially adding two big guys on either side of the line with the two tight end system that we've talked about in previous weeks. Might happen. If it does, you're going to be able to run the ball more, and you're going to get more yards per carry. And these are two great young backs. So I would almost take Gus Edwards with the last picks. He's going in the 16th round. You mentioned a lot of people do 16, but we're now seeing some 18, 20. If you can get Gus Edwards in your last round or one of the last rounds, I think it's worth a flyer, especially as a handcuff to J.K. Dobbins, because those two guys are going to be a big source of offense for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I don't see them running it more per se because they already ran so much under the old system. But
I think they'll run it better.
They'll be more efficient. I was about to say,
mm-hmm.
They probably won't run it as much, but they'll be more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And also the fact that with Gus Bus, like J.K. Dobbins, when they were both healthy, they were both getting involved. So I feel like people are really just forgetting about Gus. So a lot of times, if you can get these guys, these forgotten guys, like Gus Edwards, or these, slept on rookies like Chase Brown, these are the kind of things you need to do to ensure your running backfield depth, because if you don't have that depth, you're going to be vulnerable, and these guys are going to get scooped up off of waivers where you have a chance to get them. So you need to ensure that backfield right away, because you want to have at least 5 running backs, I feel like, because I feel like a lot of teams, they just go, I have 4, I'm good. But it's like, you want to have that 5th and make it someone that counts. Don't just take, like last year, I'll take Mark Ingram. It's like, no, take someone that actually has potential. Don't just take the old washed up guy because you know his name. Take someone that, you might not be that familiar with him, but do your research and you'll see that, these guys aren't household names yet, but they could be as soon as this season.
Yeah, let's put it this way. Whichever running back is going to be carrying the rock for Baltimore, which as of right now, it's J.K. Dobbins, but as I mentioned, it could always change. Whichever one that is carrying the rock for them is going to get his. So I think that's why it's worth a flyer for Gus Edwards and Chase Brown as well. I think Chase Brown is someone that the Bengals could be really high on if they do decide, or maybe even if they don't decide to move on from Joe Mixon.
Yeah, 100%. Let's move on now to wide receivers. And I got one. He barely made the cut because we had a little requirement for this. Wanted someone 10th round or later. And I see his ADP is already going up. He's not as nearly as slept on as he was just even a few weeks ago. And that's Sky Moore, who's someone that I've been getting a lot in these mocks late. And I hope his ADP stays around this range. If he goes much higher than this, won't be a value anymore. But at this point, he's still a value because I think in that Chiefs passing attack, someone's going to step up at receiver, and I don't see it being Kadarius Toney. I've been having debates with Justin about this from Fantasy Follow. He's a Toney truther, and I keep telling him, don't trust Toney, bro. He is not it. He gets injured every year. And I think Sky Moore is going to end up being the one to eat over there. We've got a little paper bet on that, and I'm taking the underdog here. Toney's the favorite to lead them in receiving yards. Among receivers, Kelsey, if healthy, is going to lead them in receiving yards. But I'm saying among wide receivers on that team, like Toney on paper should. I mean, he's got all the talent, but Sky Moore also has talent, and I feel like Sky Moore is just, I mean, he's young, but I feel like he's got a lot of more potential. I feel like he's someone that he doesn't have all the injury history. So I'm gonna plant my flag and say Sky Moore ends up being the Chiefs receiver that breaks out.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you on that one. I think, there's a lot more talk surrounding Toney, but Toney really hasn't justified the hype thus far. I know he was good late on, scoring a few touchdowns. They got him involved in the running game a little bit. But I think as a pure receiver, I think Sky Moore is definitely probably the best option that the Chiefs are going to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they also have a rookie, Rashee Rice, who I think's got potential, but probably for this year, Andy Reid doesn't really feature rookies much. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling just is what he is. He's nothing special.
And I feel like Toney is probably the closest. Well, MVS is the closest thing you'll get to Toney in the sense that, these guys talked about every year. It's like, oh, they could break out this year. The quarterback has a great relationship with them. They want him here, and then it just never develops.
Yeah, I wouldn't throw Tony quite that far down the abyss yet in the black hole of just like MVS. Is just he's undraftable. That guy is just he'll have one good game out of every 5. I mean, maybe a decent best ball stash, but for redraft regular where you got to set your lineup each week, don't play that game. That's the worst. But speaking of guys though that could end up values late, I see you got Hunter Renfrow, who might not even be a Las Vegas Raider in week 1, but I feel like that's kind of why his ADP slipping. We're not sure where he's going to go, but I'm guessing you see him still having a path to fantasy relevancy.
Yeah, I think the trade potential is definitely part of the reason that I included him on this list. It's also because Hunter Renfrow 2 years ago, people forget he was a good wide receiver.
Yeah, but Pro Bowl. I think he made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, and one down year, and suddenly a guy who was going in the middle rounds is now falling all the way to 16. Which, I mean, if I see Hunter Renfrow's name there in 16, I'm taking a flyer. Obviously, we've got question marks surrounding the quarterback situation in Vegas throughout next season. Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't even know what's going on there. But obviously, if you've got a young guy in there, or if you've got a guy who can't quite sling the rock as far as he could, Hunter Renfrow is a safety blanket. I think everyone besides Devontae Adams had a down year in that passing game last year, and with Darren Waller gone, it opens the door for Hunter Renfrow if he wants to potentially have another big year, a bounce back year. And so I think the potential there, because he's already a player who's been established, who's had good years, and he's still relatively young. So if you can get a guy like that in the late rounds, I think it's worth a flyer because, as you mentioned earlier, this late in the draft, you're playing the waiver game, and half these guys that you take in the 16th will end up on waivers by week 2 anyway.
Right. So yeah, definitely worth a shot. Might end up in a better situation in the Raiders, and even if he does stay there, might surprise people with assuming Jimmy ends up the QB. If it's not Jimmy, then I want nothing to do with that offense, and that includes Devontae Adams. Like if it's Brian Hoyer, just throw all the Raiders. I'll throw them off the ship. They're done. Like just stick a fork in them. But
not a fan of the Destroyer, Spencer.
Hell no, that guy. I mean, he's just food. Yeah, I mean, he used to be like somewhat okay, but now that he's older, like it's just, oh man, please, Raiders. And then they're saying, and then even worse, they're saying, oh, their emergency backup to Jimmy might end up being Carson Wentz. Oh God, that's just. I mean, he's better than the Destroyer, but still, it's not a whole lot better.
Yeah, I think their biggest mistake of the offseason, other than giving all that money to Jimmy Garoppolo potentially, was getting rid of Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, letting him go to the division rival. Sean Payton scooped him up real quick in case Russ ends up a total flop again.
And I know Stidham's not going to be anything special, but, at least he was a familiar face in the building, and he knew some of those guys. And he didn't have an awful final game of the year last year. So
Right. Yeah. Let's move on now to tight ends. I'm just gonna call him Chig. I know he's a Chigokonkwo. I was going Chigokonkwo. That's what most people call him anyway. I don't want to butcher his first name, but yeah, he's someone that's really trending up. He was a guy that, if they sign D-Hop, then this will change. But if they don't sign DeAndre Hopkins, then Okonkwo should be the number 2 option there in Tennessee as far as receiving. Treylon Burks going to get the majority of the work, but there's in today's NFL, I know it's Derrick Henry's offense, but he's still got to pass enough for 2 or 3 guys to quote unquote get theirs. And Okonkwo is definitely going to get his, even if they bring in Hopkins, because they don't have any depth outside of Treylon Burks really. So I think Okonkwo is in a really good spot. It's a friendly offense for the tight end position. Delaney Walker, Strive there, Jonnu Smith have some pretty solid names over the years. So not saying Okonkwo is a top 5 guy, but definitely could finish top 10 just based off the volume and the fact that it's a pretty tight end friendly offense.
Yeah, and once you get past those first few tight ends, it's really a crapshoot as to who finishes. I won't say 3 because Hawkinson's there, but once you get past the first 4, maybe 4 through 10 is really a crapshoot.
Yeah, I say anything from like Kittle, I'd put into the good range too. But anything like Pitts is we don't know what you're getting. Dallas Goddard, and then anything below them, just really just good luck.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really like I said, a crapshoot. And Okonkwo, as you mentioned, is a guy who's really gotten a lot of hype leading into the season.
100%. So you got Cole Kmet, who actually, his ADP is slipping. I mean, shoot, at this point, he might be the best value on the board for those waiting on a tight end late. Because I know everyone's probably worried about DJ Moore and then the Chase Claypool should be more involved. But I feel like people forget Cole Kmet last year became a red zone target for Justin Fields. I don't think that's just going to go away. Or even if he doesn't get as many targets. If he's getting 8-9 touchdowns, that should be good enough to be in that tight end one range.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a guy who we're talking about. He's got 9 career touchdowns. The biggest knock on him his first 2 seasons was the fact that he just wasn't finding the end zone. And so if you've now got a tight end who he looked to have better chemistry with Justin Fields last year, he was down in receptions and yards slightly, but I mean, if he's given you 7 more touchdowns and only 50 less yards and 10 less receptions, I'll definitely take that trade off any day. And if you can get a guy who's nearing double-digit touchdowns in the 13th round, absolutely give me that every day, especially at tight end.
Right. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, their passing game still a work in progress. I feel like Fields is going to kind of lead on the people he's comfortable with. DJ Moore will definitely be involved, but it's like someone else has to get involved. And Darnell Mooney's coming off an injury. A Chase Claypool showed next to nothing. And so it's like, oh yeah, yeah. Our leagues, I mean, shoot, it can be a battle sometimes. We've got the family rivalry there, so yeah, we're gonna go to war again this year. It should be fun
Yeah, those battles are always fun.
for sure. So let's cap it off here with my rant, which is for those watching. This isn't intended at y'all. I mean, shoot, if anyone that's watching now, y'all are gonna be more than prepared by the time the draft comes around. This is more for those folks that just kind of wait to the last minute and then just kind of like, oh, I think the draft. I guess I'll just buy a magazine and draft. But it's just like, man, so you got to start preparing now if you really care about winning. If it's just, I mean, some people just like to do it with their buddies, go to the draft and drink. If you're just kind of casually, if that's the case, well, then fine. Just do what makes you happy. But if you're really serious about fantasy football and be like, oh, I want to win, but I never win. It's always, I feel like I get cheated, blah, blah, blah. Stop saying all that and take ownership, study. And if you don't, then you're probably going to hate your team, because I notice that every year people, they study last minute and then they come to me on Instagram. It's like, oh, how do I improve my team? I was thinking like, man, you should have come to me sooner, man. You wouldn't be in this spot. I feel like it's gotten better overall. So I didn't really have like a very passionate rant this week. It was more just kind of like a PSA, just kind of like, just if you haven't already, start studying and spread the word to your friends. Maybe not your league mates, but your friends that you're not like super competitive with. But if you know people that are just getting into fantasy, tell them, hey, you might want to start preparing for that draft now, because if you wait till August, then I feel like people are gonna probably have a leg up on you. So just I'll keep it friendly for now. If I start seeing some ugly teams, I'm gonna have to crack the whip. But for now, it's early. We'll be chill. Just study and just keep watching, and we'll be good. Delta Roots, thanks for tuning in. CD Lamb, big year. I think so. I got CD Lamb finishing top 5. He's my WR4 right now. The only receivers I have ranked above him are Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Tyreek Hill. So, yeah, I think CD does well. I don't think the Kellen Moore thing's that big of a deal. I still think Dak, if anything, Dak might do better this year, because Dak last year had kind of an off year. So, yeah, should be a very big year for CD. This is his year. He said year 2, 3. I think this is his 4th year, actually. Year 4, I believe, for CD Lamb.
Yeah, and just piggybacking off the rant a little bit, obviously, like you said, everyone watching is kind of starting to prepare themselves. But if you have any questions for us, I know Spencer and I are both more than happy to answer any fantasy questions. So
yeah, that's very true. That's Spencer the Guru, and as they gave a Gabe H Sports. So yeah, hit us up, y'all. Yeah, we got y'all for sure. So, any other final thoughts before we put a bow on this one?
No, not really. Other than going back to Dak Prescott a second ago, I think that's another guy who I know you got him in one of your mock drafts. There's going to be some good value on him. I don't think he'll have as bad a year as he did last year. So I think, keep Dak Prescott in mind. I guess that might be my final thought.
Yeah, definitely less interceptions and should still be throwing a lot there. Mike McCarthy, he wants to run the ball more, but they cut Zeke and didn't draft anyone to replace him. So I think that's a sign that they're still going to be throwing a lot, which is why I like CD, because he's going to be the focal point of that passing game. So it should be interesting. But that's going to do it for this one. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. This has been Spencer the Guru Urquhart with Gabe Henderson. We'll be back. Well, actually, I'll be back. We have another solo episode next week. Gabe has one more week of vacation, and then he'll be back with the rest of the way the following week. So until then, we'll catch y'all later. Peace out.